Put that up there. Hi, I'm not naked. I promise. It's a jumpsuit. Welcome back for the last time to your Akashic Records personal access program. I am very, very invested and excited to bring to you guys this last lesson because I think it's after you guys have this material, that self-doubt and like lack of confidence and that whole like I'm doing this wrong feeling in general is I'm not going to say disappear, but we're definitely going to make a hard dent in it. So I'm very excited to bring that to you guys. um Before we get into that though, I want to get a vibe check and see how your freestyle sessions went last week. Did you ask about relationships? Did you ask about God? Did you ask about sex? Did you ask about food? You know what I mean? Bodily issues. Does he like me back? Um, cause girl, I'm such a princess. I stay in that narrative where I'm just like, um, so yeah, like this was your week that where I was really hoping that you guys were just gonna go batshit with the records. And some of you did, and some of you uh expressed feelings of discouragement because you channeled some information that wasn't immediately verifiable, or it was verified but it was incorrect, and those things. And the only thing I have to say about that is don't be hard on yourself, okay? Like, listen, it is really, really, really challenging to channel specific numbers, especially when they're so far out of your consciousness. You know what I mean? Like, it's hard. Even for me, I'm a professional. When I get to that point where I'm like, shit, okay, I'm about to channel like some dates and some specific numbers and some formulas, I resort to writing it down because I have to process one thing at a time in order to really get it anywhere near correct. So, you guys are what, 3 weeks into your practice, and I'm 2 years in, and I still struggle. So don't set yourself up for self-sabotage. I'm very happy that you guys were courageous enough to try, but always take those attempts with a grain of salt because those things are going to come with practice. It's going to come with practice, with um, being totally open to receiving with no interruption of your inner monologue. It's going to come with reading books about physics. If you're not used to seeing numbers in your daily life and understanding them, then when you're trying to channel them, it's going to be extra hard. And there's no shortcuts to your level of access to the Akashic records. There's no shortcut to expanding your consciousness. And sometimes consciousness expands this way, but most of the time it expands this way. It goes inside you. So you kind of have to tap into that scientist, that astronomer, that STEM major somewhere in you, which is there. It's definitely there. It's just gonna take you a hot minute. Um, so yeah, there's that. Always attempt it, always bravely attempt it, and replace your doubt with curiosity. Instead of being like, oh, I knew that I couldn't do this, just be like, okay, well, what if I tried it a different way? You know? And that's something that's been coming up for me personally during this program, especially with this group where I kind of have to I had to really find a way to mediate for you guys because I know that self-doubt was a strong thing earlier in the program. And that's a way that really worked for me. When I feel stuck, I'm like, oh, it's time to learn something new. When I feel discouraged, I'm like, okay, it's time to try it a different way. Maybe even a way that makes me uncomfortable. But that's what expansion is. It's not avoiding discomfort, it's learning to cope with it and do the thing anyway. It's learning to be scared and do it anyway. um, so yeah, that's what I have to say about that. Like, brave attempts, love that for you guys. Um, don't be so hard on yourself. Honestly, take it with a grain of salt. You guys are 3 weeks now heading into your 4 weeks of a practice that's really a lifelong learning commitment. It really is. So don't be don't be super hard on yourselves. Always remember that you are grown-up children. You're not going to expect a 2-year-old, to memorize a multiplication table and, the capital of every state in the country it lives in. Like, it's gonna be okay. I was trying to get my mom's birthday, but it didn't happen. That's okay. You're not meant to have it right now. It's all right. Can't believe it's our last class. I know. I know. I feel like I get emotionally attached and then I like, which makes sense because my codependent ass. And no, it does make sense though that like my role as a facilitator would be temporary and short because I do get emotionally attached and I have a hard time letting go. But that's all I have to do. And like literally that's all I have to do for a living. So it's like, ah, but she's getting better every day, guys, and you're getting better every day. Okay. Girl, I just splashed myself in the eye. Okay. I think I'm going to split the material in 2 sections with a period of intervals in between. Fire off your questions. If you can't, hold them until the end, that's okay. Fire them off and I'll go back and answer them as we move through the material. Does the group chat disband after this class? No, it doesn't. In fact, in my DMs, there are still people from a year ago that are still friends, still use it actively. Now, I will be active in the group chat for another week, just in case. Like I'm there for a total of 5 weeks. So just in case you can't come up with any questions right now, but you do when you're out there living your life with your daily practice and things come up as your practice begins to personalize, in accordance to your needs, then yeah, I'll be around. I'll be around lurking and waiting for someone to tag me with questions and things like that. After that 5th week is up, I say that I leave it, but I don't actually leave it. I just stop checking it regularly. So at that point, you guys are kind of on your own. But yeah, in these group chats, a lot of people have become personal friends. A lot of people have met in real life and like they're just besties now and things like that. And actually, I've met some of my best friends in my first Akashic Records class ever. I met 2 of my very best friends that I travel the world with now. It's just an amazing, it's an amazing thing the way the Akasha almost works as a social network where everyone that travels and is touched by the Akasha knows Akashic energy when they feel it. Like there's no doubt about it, and it's really hard not to be friends with people that get you. So if you guys want the group chat to stay active, then do it. If you guys want to leave it, do it. Like I'm not gonna that's not my deal. That's like you guys' deal and whatever feels right to you. Okay, now let's move on to the instructional material because this instructional material is structured in a way that is supposed to do damage control from the 3rd week. So in the 3rd week, you guys were encouraged and instructed to do whatever you wanted with the records. And that is because in the 4th week, we come back to that constriction. Remember, this whole program has been expansion the 1st week, constriction and self-control the 2nd week. 3rd week, we expanded again. Now we're going to come back to self-regulation and constriction and do a little bit of repair work with whatever started to come up inside you when you were on your own. So let's talk about self-suggestion. We're going to expand on the question that we tackled last week where it's like, oh my God, what if I'm just talking to myself and this is my own internal monologue? That's not a problem necessarily. It's not necessarily an issue. In fact, when you self-suggest in the Akashic Records, it's because the Akasha is allowing it to happen. It's because at some point in your Akashic journey, you're not going to need their advice as much for the daily little things that you do. So self-suggestion in the Akashic Records is not only allowable, like it can happen and will happen every now and then, but it's almost like a mark of it's almost it's almost like a rite of passage, okay? Because what happens when you self-suggest in the Akashic records, meaning self-suggesting is like you asked a question and you just genuinely made up an answer um, from your own internal monologue, your own internal stream of consciousness. There's nothing necessarily wrong with that because you yourself are like a computer. You're full of data from past lives, from the environment you lived in, from the racial experiences that you've had, the gender experiences that you've had, the gender experiences you may not have had personally, but have heard from your close friends and were there to witness. You know, there is collective information that we were all a part of, like 9/11, COVID. That's a really recent one that affected all of us. So those inner knowings are very much like they have a place. Okay, you can rely on those. So when you self-suggest, what happens is most of the time you've heard that answer before. You already have that data. The records either already touched on the subject and you're asking for the eighth time for confirmation, you know, because we're human and we need that. And the records at that point are just like just repeat back what you remember from the last time we talked about this. And your consciousness will do that. Your consciousness will respond and it'll just stream an entire answer that's almost verbatim what it retained from wherever you got that data. If you saw it on TV, you witnessed it in your parents, you heard it from me, you read it in a tweet somewhere. All of that is a-okay. Your own inner knowing is not your enemy. It's something you can rely on, and it's something that will always be supplemented by the records. The records are never going to replace it. So when you self-suggest your way through an answer, when you really do get to that zone of you're making shit up at this point, don't freak out because you're making most of your life up anyway. Okay, most of this is made up. You know, our perception of reality doesn't mean it's reality. Okay. So what that translates to is let me make a good point here. You can and at some point will self-suggest your way through an answer in an Akashic session. Can you self-suggest your way through an entire Akashic session? Okay, no. That's highly unlikely. You know what I mean? It's highly, highly unlikely. I'm not saying it won't happen, but it's not impossible, but like, listen, it's real unlikely. Can you self-suggest your way through an answer? Yes, especially if it's one that you've asked a lot or you've been questioning a lot and have been receiving answers for, maybe just not in a way that's so comprehensive and concise the way the records are. But you heard it on the radio, in a podcast, Beyonce said it, you know what I mean? All of that is data gathering. Your entire lived experience thus far is you gathering data. For whatever questions you came here to answer, that's your entire life has been that. You've been data gathering. And what good is that is gathering that data if A, you're not going to use it for yourself? B, if you're not going to synthesize your individual experiences and share the universal truth. So if you have been a victim of, let's say, abuse, you know, like I have a strong personal experience with abuse. And what good would my data gathering experiences of abuse be if I didn't synthesize and find the universal truth and then shared it with you all? You know, like, what's the point of reading something that you just hold in your head if you're not going to apply it and maybe even use it to help somebody else? Okay. So self-suggestion is not your enemy. Self-suggestion is allowed in the records. Okay. It kind of takes a while to get there, you know, because you have to dissolve all of the self-imposed limitations. You have to divorce yourself from the narrative. You have to divorce yourself from the data itself in order to really be able to synthesize and create something beautiful out of it. You have to divorce yourself. You have to not take it so personal and be like, I was abused, therefore it says something about me. No, what I do from that place is what defines me. And everything else that I endured is more, it says more about the abuser than it does about the abused. Okay. Um, so always, always, always respond not to the way people treat you by taking it personally, but try your best to respond as a demonstration, as a statement of who you are in those uncomfortable situations. Not to that person, fuck that person. We don't care about their opinion. To the universe, okay? No human being is judge, jury, and executioner of another, okay? Including you at yourself. But it is about responding. It's what you do with your circumstances that truly define your character out there to the world. If people get you and they applaud you for it, amazing. I bet it feels incredible. If they don't, and you know, they invalidate you, always assume that people are doing the best that they can with the information that they have. And it's not always about you. It's more reflective of what they're going through, and that's okay. You know, boundaries. Have empathy, have compassion, assume they're doing the best they can, but at the same time be like, do your best over there, like away from me. Okay, I got off on a little tangent, but self-suggestion is not your enemy. Self-suggestion is your friend, and eventually you are going to get there. And in experience, okay, in what it looks like, what it sounds like when you're actually in that space, is this. I'm going to stick with my princess example. My princess example, oh my God, but does he like me back? Is this my soulmate? Like, is this Loki, my savior, that's going to like save me from my own sadness? Like, don't do what I do, okay? But that's a real thing that I feel a lot of human beings go through, is like that codependency and needing a savior. You either feel important to be the savior or you want to be saved. Most of us teeter somewhere in the middle of both of those things. And this is a real ass example from my own life where I was asking the same shit over and over and over to my records. I literally was like, is he or is he not? I have a vested interest in knowing that right now, because I'm starting to catch feelings, and if those feelings are not going to be reciprocated, and reciprocated not even in those 5 minutes, reciprocated for the next 50 years, then I don't want to deal with it. And I asked a version of that question so many times that eventually, after a couple months, I self-suggested through the answer. And I was like, you know, what was it? It was like, present in the moment. Don't try to control the narrative of the relationship. He's a person of free will. And, you know, like all you can do is like unpack what makes you feel unworthy or what makes you doubt that you are a woman that is desirable to begin with and blah, blah, blah. Like, I got it. You know what I mean? Like, okay, I understood. But it wasn't until I self-suggested my way through an answer that I realized the importance of that self-suggestion. Once it became integrated and I self-suggested my way through that answer where it was like, oh shit, Denise, you're not allowing room or space for this relationship to grow naturally. You keep pushing the relationship forward and forcing a connection, not because there isn't one there, but because it's not moving at the pace that you wanted to go in. So in my self-suggested answer, that was something that came up where it was like, Denise, if you force this connection, you are always forever going to be insecure that this connection wasn't a twofer, that it wasn't a two-part deal. You are forever going to be insecure about it, that you forced it, that it happened because of you and not because of something that he chose. So I got triggered and I was like, gag. That was my self-suggested perspective. What I did next truly showed my mastery of my own subconscious because I asked, did I just self-suggest this answer? And the record said, yes, and. They're never going to say yes, and you're incorrect because your inner knowing is is unlikely to be correct. If anything, it's going to be limited. Okay? So when you self-suggest and you get there, if you suspect that you're self-suggesting, pause and ask, am I self-suggesting my way through this answer? And the keeper is usually going to say no and be like, what the fuck are you talking about? Hello, can you not hear me clearly? Or they're going to be like, yes, and. Because your inner knowing is very unlikely to be incorrect, but it is likely to be limited. So when that happened to me, the keeper said, yes, and may we offer you a bigger perspective. And I was like, oh shit, yes. And in that bigger perspective, they really did zoom out a little bit because I was so in my feelings. They were like, all right, let's zoom out. Okay. Let's zoom out and let's show you a perspective from where we are. This is what we're seeing, blah, 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 step 1, step 2, step 3. So my inner knowing wasn't incorrect. It was limited and then it was supplemented. But at first it was validated. The records were like, we completely understand where you came up with that answer. But let us tell you what else is applying to your answer. The narratives of your mother, the marriage of your parents, the abuse that you've been through, your own personal insecurities about what you look like. And like all these things were also factors in me creating that answer. So they said, okay, yes, there's some valid points, but zoom out a little bit so that you can see the entire picture. And sometimes I'm over here. I'm seeing the entire picture and they're like, all right, baby girls, time to zoom in and see what your personal contributions are. So that's what it sounds like. Even when you suggest, the keeper is always going to unlimit your perspective. It's not that your first answer is wrong, and it's not that it's not enough. It's just that that's what they're there for, to elevate you a little bit, to take where you're already at and either deconstruct it so it's less complicated, or they're going to unfold another layer of the flower for you to see things fresh, okay, as if you've never seen it before, so that you can make your decisions from that place of presence instead of not wanting to face rejection of the past, not wanting to feel shame or humiliation from that rejection, all that shit. So, and on that note, when you self-suggest, sometimes that answer is enough. Sometimes you'll be like, wait, did I just self-suggest this? And the keeper's like, yeah. Now go do it. Now go apply it. Go do exactly what you just said that you needed to. And you're like, oh my God. So that's what self-suggestion feels like and sounds like. When in doubt, always ask, did I self-suggest my way through this answer? You can always count on the keeper to say either yes or no and give you a full explanation. Like, no, that was definitely me. And it's okay that the distinction isn't very clear yet. Or they'll say, yes, and we support it. Or yes, and we want to invite you to look at it this way. Yes, and maybe there's other variables that are also contributing that you're not accounting for in your answer. So they'll bring them up. But self-suggestion isn't the end of the world. Most people, when they self-suggest, they get triggered and then they're like, this isn't reliable anymore, blah, blah, blah. And it's like, girl, yes, you are. You are reliable. And it is okay to have limited information. Our whole experience is limited in one way, shape, or form. Like, hello, we're wearing flesh suits. Yeah, and mine looks different than yours. So it's like, yes, fragments exist, but fragments are not inherently a bad thing. Okay. Differences are what makes this human experience tolerable and fruitful. Okay. If we were like other ascended races, let's say the Syrians or whatever, if you guys are familiar with, galactic consciousness, if you're not, humor me for a minute. A society looks the same. There is no differentiation. In fact, they don't have voices because they don't speak, because words seem silly when you can just telepathically communicate by the way you feel. You know what I mean? When you all look the same and there's not a whole lot of variation in tones, then that means your purposes as a race are just different. Okay? They're not human at all. You have a different point of concentration. You're there to do other shit that has nothing to do with humanity over here. You know what I mean? Somebody said Syrian gang. I was like, hey. But there you go. There's your self-suggestion note. It's not a bad thing. In fact, when you start self-suggesting, you're done being babysat, and that's when you can really get into the grit, and really expand, and it's very exciting. It's like a graduation moment. So celebrate your own inner knowing, okay? And it's okay to doubt your inner knowing every now and then. We're taught to, okay? But that doesn't happen naturally. So it's about reversing that. Like, okay, yes, I was taught to doubt myself because mom and dad always know best or whatever, but did they? I'm sure they tried their best with what they had, but that doesn't mean that there aren't things left to be desired, right? They're human beings too. So there's that. Moving forward. Life hacks, I'll call them. I'll call them life hacks, but they're more like Akashic Records channeling hacks. The Akashic Records cannot be corrupted. That is what the Keeper is there for. That's what all the protections of the Akashic energy are there for. The Akashic Records protect themselves from you. And the Akashic Records Keeper keeps certain information from you, so that it's uncorruptible. That's why human beings can't go to the 8th dimension. And those that do, I don't know, I've never really heard of someone that's been able to do that. Even Nikola Tesla, and Edgar Cayce, Matthias de Stefano, like great Akashic Records practitioners, know that they don't go there. Instead, the pieces that are relevant to them from that point, which are always objective information, things such as formula, things such as numbers, things that aren't really like subject to interpretation, they just are what they are brought to you, okay? They're brought to you. That's the whole point. They're brought to you, they're brought to someone you know, whatever. But that's what it's there for. The Akashic Records Keeper is always going to be loyal to the uncorruptibility of the records before they're loyal to you, your feelings, your anxieties. You're like, but I need an answer now. And the Keeper's like, yikes, sucks to suck. No, not like that. But you know, they'll be like, hey, slow down. You're tired. You're dehydrated. You haven't moved in like 4 weeks. You don't need this answer now. What you need is rest, water, and take a walk. You know what I mean? Play with your dog like it's been a minute. And then when you're grounded, you can come back and you can get that answer. And most of the time that's for our own good, is the way they keep you from certain information. It's for our own good. Now, the Akashic Records are not immune though to our human interference. And that's what we're going to talk about next. The Akashic Records are not corruptible. You are not a special snowflake that can suddenly magically fuck up the Akashic Records. It's already happened, okay? It's already happened in human history, and that's why they were taken away for ages. Now, there's protocol involved, okay? So it's already happened. It's not going to happen again. Bringing us back to the present. That doesn't mean that you in your human self can't interfere with a message, okay? So there are 3 kinds of interference that are the most common, okay? Not just in this program, for just human beings in general. I am going to start with the easiest one and work my way up. Number 1, physical interference. This means physical interference, meaning you're trying to channel, but your mom's in the other room talking really loudly and you can hear everything she's saying. Your dog is barking like crazy. Your child is asking for your attention. The neighbors are just having a kiki everywhere. You're dehydrated. You haven't eaten. Shannon brought up a good point in the group chat. She was on a time limit. That's physical resistance. So your ability to channel isn't going to be as great because those physical distractions are existing. You know, you're up, you're moving, you're doing shit, trying to channel. My answer to that, my suggestion to that is resist not. Don't resist. If the room and the environment you're in is just not it, is just not supportive of you channeling, do your best. Don't resist it. Okay? Don't force yourself to channel where you are. Move. Go to your car. Go on a walk. Drive to the beach or whatever. You know what I mean? Do something to change the environment. Sometimes that's not going to be enough. Sometimes you do drive to a park and you're at peace and you're grounded and it's still just not happening. That's okay. There are a million different physical variables for why that happens, and none of them have anything to do with you. Okay? Sometimes it's just the city you're in. It moves too quickly. I'm 30 minutes south of LA, so like, listen. When I go out to other places like Sedona, Mexico, my channeling abilities are fucking fire. And here, you know, it's just more of a struggle. Life moves very quickly, and it has nothing to do with me because I sure as hell don't move quickly. But it's the environment, and that is very okay. Sometimes there are transits in Pisces and Neptune and shit that just fuck me all the way up. And I cannot for the life of me tell what is real versus what is an illusion. And that is okay. Do not resist these energies, okay? Our life as human beings would be so much easier if we learned to not resist. If we learned to just be like, you know what? Today's just not the day. I'm not feeling very clear. And it took a while for me to learn that, especially because, you know, subscribers to my website pay to get a weekly channeling and energetic update and how to handle that. And it's a pretty long message every single week. But sometimes I would rather just give it to them later in the week than try to force myself every Monday to channel when I know I'm not going to channel something reliably. Okay? I'd rather take my time than give people unreliable information. It is what it is. I had to go through it to give myself that permission. But you know, it turned into a gem in this class. Don't resist those physical distractions and physical hindrances to your channeling. Sometimes it really just isn't the day. Sometimes, you know, nothing affects the crown chakra more than fatigue and a lack of water. So sometimes you really just gotta call it a day. And then you wake up the next day and you're like, well, look at me. So consider that. Don't resist, okay? Because you're gonna expend a lot of energy just resisting than you would if you just saved it for another day or you saved it for another time and another place. Okay, that's number one. That's within our control. Most of the time we can control our environment, not entirely, but you know, we can at the very least influence it. So that's number one. Physical resistance or physical interference, resist not. Don't resist. Go with the flow. Save it for another day. You'll be a lot happier. Number two, and this is the big one. This is where the light bulbs click for everyone. Mental interference. Mental interference it shows up as you judging the information before it's all the way in front of you. Okay, and I am very guilty of doing this. You know, I faced a lot of home insecurity when I was young. My family was homeless, And for years after the homelessness, me personally, when I moved out, I faced a lot of home insecurity. I moved like 9 times in like 5 years. It was crazy. So when I first got this apartment, I live on my own. When I first got this apartment, I was like, oh my God, I was expressing to the records as I was unpacking. I was like, I never want to leave. Like, I love it here. And like, the next time I move out, I want it to be like a home that I own and all these things. And the records were like, well, because I said I wanna stay for at least 3 years. And then the records were like, well, actually, and I was like, oh, uh, uh-uh, nope, nope. Records closed, baby. I was like, I don't want to hear it. I don't care what the reason is, the rationale. I am wounded and I don't want to hear, because then I'm going to get upset. I'm not even going to bother unpacking and I'm going to be pissed. So I never heard the answer, okay, to the rest of that channeling, because it started to sound like something I didn't want to hear. But what if the Akashic record said, well, actually, you'll be moving out in 2 years because you will have made enough money to buy a home then. So there's no reason to wait 3 years anymore. Or you're going to fall in love with someone who just happens to be rich and is going to take you away from from this life. Or, you have an estranged relative or something, and you magically inherited an island and it has room for you to bring all your friends with you to Costa Rica and live among the macaws or something. Like, I really wish that I had taken the time to channel all of the information that they had to say in front of me and focus all of my energy on just receiving, rather than receiving, processing, and judging the information at the same time. Okay, that's too much, and there's absolutely no way that you can do all those things at once and still channel reliably. Okay, so my suggestion to mental interference when your own thoughts and thoughts start to interject is channel the information in full. Let the keeper finish and then go back, read it, and decide how you feel about it. But don't try to do all of that at once. Don't try to judge it, decide how you feel about it, judge it as, oh no, it sounds like something I don't want to hear, therefore I did it wrong. Whoa. Receive. Okay? Receive a person, receive a conversation, receive someone's criticism, receive someone's praise. Receive it in full, get to the end, and then decide how you feel about it. Okay? That is a life hack in general for being a human being, but in the Akashic records, oh bitch, it works wonders. Okay? So just allow that to happen. And honestly, if you really, really struggle with this one, write down what the keeper is saying to you by hand, no typing. Because typing, we get very quick. We're like, la, 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 la. We're very quick. It kind of invalidates what you're trying to do, which is slow down. So when in doubt, and when you're really struggling with anxiety and intrusive thoughts and just a lot of mental chatter going on, and you can feel yourself trying to do everything at once, receiving the message, processing the message, judging the message, sharing how you feel about it, resisting how you feel about it, that's also trash. Like, throw that out. That you can't do that. Grab a journal, grab a piece of paper and a pen, and old school, baby. Write down every word that you hear, one thing at a time, until it's all the way done. And when it's all the way done, you can go back, you can read it, and move forward. Okay? But writing things down by hand forces you to process one word at a time, one phrase at a time. And when you're focused on writing it down, you're not focused on retaining the information. So you're not multitasking, processing it, trying to figure out how you feel about it. No, you're just recording it. You become your own record keeper. You're only focused on recording the information exactly as it is dictated to you. When you are all the way done recording, then you can use that energy to process, judge it, see how you feel about it, and you're very entitled to that. In any circumstance, not just the record, you're very entitled to that. It only gets messy when we shortcut. When we shortcut, when we multitask, it doesn't work that way. So there you go. I saw some light bulbs in the comments, and I was like, oh, there you go. There you go. Okay. So there's your mental interference. The next one is emotional interference. So thus far we have physical resistance, just physical distractions. The environment, the energy, the physical stamina just isn't there that day. Don't resist it. Don't expend more energy resisting the flow of things than just allowing them to happen and just trying again another day. The records aren't going to be mad at you. Like, it's fine. And mental interference. Don't judge and try to process the information at the same time that you are receiving it. Receive it. If you really need help slowing down, receive it, record it, reread it, and then judge it. Okay. So for that, it's judge not. So far we have resist not and we have judge not. Next one is emotional interference. Now, everyone processes their emotions a little differently. So this is where it kind of gets iffy. It's hard for me to come up with a blanket statement of what emotional interference looks like because it looks different to a lot of people. For me personally, I tend to self-isolate. My love language is quality time. So when I'm going through it, guess what I do? I don't love myself. So I hate myself. And what do? I self-isolate from everyone, including the Akashic records. Okay. I don't know what happens when I get deep in my sad girl feelings that the part of my brain that knows I have resources to get myself out of it just deletes. It's like I magically forget that the Akashic records are a thing and that they love me and that God loves me and that my friends love me. I magically forget that I'm a whole ass tarot reader too, where like I don't even have to channel by myself. I could just pull a card and call it a day. That part of my brain goes too. I go into full self-reliance and isolation mode. So that is emotional interference. I don't even bother going into the records because I'm so deep in my own wallowing that I don't want to hear that they love me. I don't want to hear their validation, and I don't want to hear that I have the choice to feel this way or not. Like, I know that's true, but like I don't want to hear it. I either want you to wallow with me or support my wallowing, which is something that the records are never going to do. It's something most human beings aren't going to want to do either. But there I am, you know. It happens rarely. I don't want to like alarm anyone. It does happen rarely nowadays because I've gotten a lot better at coping with my own shadow, with my wounds, you know. Like, it's one thing accepting your sorrow and the wounds of the past, but it's quite another thing to forgive yourself for the way you've treated people when you were acting from that wounded space. Bitch. Like, shout out to the girls that are super hard on themselves, you know what I mean? So that's how emotional interference shows up for me personally. But it also shows up as fear. Okay? For me, it shows up as I don't want to fucking hear it, get away from me. For most people, it shows up as fear. Okay? And it's almost like mental interference where the message starts to sound like something that makes you uncomfortable and something that inspires fear inside of you. So you invalidate it and you're like, no, that wasn't right. There's no way that could be right. That I didn't channel that correctly and blah, blah, blah. Or you channel the information and it's in front of you and you're still scared. For example, I've used this example with you guys before, I think. I had a student not too long ago, about maybe half a year ago into this program. And we were asking about the most advantageous relationships we have and the most disadvantageous relationships we have as a class. And her marriage of 10 years came up as the most disadvantageous, as the reason why she's been stuck spiritually and physically, like financially, like it came up. And she, like, sis has, I think she had 2 babies in 15 years of marriage. Okay, so she was experiencing a lot of emotional interference after receiving that first bit of information. She was like, oh shit, what? She was scared of what she was going to do with that information. What was that going to look like? Was she even capable of doing it? It was hard, okay? Fear not, okay? When you start to feel fear when receiving an answer for the records, from the records, and it's because you don't think you're capable of doing it, you're scared of what implementing that information is going to look like, secondhand anxiety, yes, girl. When those things start to come up, it is very, very important that you remind yourself that the Akashic records are giving you the information that you asked for, but it doesn't mean that you have to implement it right then and there. Most of us have to go through a process, a timeline, and very naturally we come to the same conclusions that the records gave us a year ago, 2 years ago, 5 years ago. You know what I mean? It's a process, okay? It doesn't mean that the truth isn't the truth. They still gave it to you, but it doesn't mean it has to be true for you right then and there, okay? That's number one. Number two, fuck the rest of the session. Stop right there and unpack your fear, because that's going to do a lot for you. You can always interrupt a keeper and, be polite about it and say, hang on, I'm noticing that this is inspiring tension and fear inside of me. Can we pause this conversation and have a conversation about that first? And they will help you. For a long time, I was afraid of the dark. Okay? And I ended up making a list of fears that I had: fear of rejection, fear of abandonment, fear of being the bad guy. Okay? Fear of being exactly what my abusers said that I was. Fear of, there was like some other shit in there too. Fear of being wrong was a big one, and that really comes from being raised in a household where you're, God forbid that you're wrong, because oh shit, it comes from that abuse. And the records gave me something really impactful once. Ooh, my dad do be calling. Okay, there we go. The records were like, here, write us a list of your worst fears. No one is going to read it except you. So go all the way off. Okay? Tell us about every single fear that you have, and we'll give you some info on it to help. And I was like, oh, okay. Fear of the dark. I'm not afraid of the dark. I'm afraid of my own carelessness. I am afraid of not being able to rely on any other sense except sight. Okay? So they said, when I experience fear of the dark, I'm experiencing fear of the unknown. And the best thing to do is either A, empower myself, okay? Empower myself by being very careful. And making the unknown my bitch. Making the unknown the known, because I'm the one that creates the known. When I get scared of the future, it's about coming back and grounding, and me being like, well, the future is not just something that magically exists. The future is dependent on the choices I make right now. So let me look at the choices that are fucking me up right now so I can choose differently. And B, slow down. They were like, when you are in a physically dark space, which I have been, they were like, when you're in a physically dark space, always rely on your other senses to support you. That's why your physical body has 5. It doesn't just have eyes, duh. It has 4 other ones, 4 other senses that all are going to interact differently and communicate different information about the environment you're in, even when your eyes aren't there. So slow down and use them. And I was like, well, son of a bitch. If that's not the most obvious thing I've ever heard. Obvious, simple, but life-changing. So when you come across fear, Okay, that feeling of fear in your channeled answers, pause the answer right there and unpack that fear before you do anything else. Because if you don't, resisting that fear is going to take up a lot of energy and it's not going to allow you to channel reliably. So just stop, unpack that fear until you don't feel as fearful, and then move forward. Okay? Alrighty. So there it is. Physical resistance, physical interference. I keep calling it resistance. Physical interference, distractions, you're moving, you're doing shit, energy isn't helpful. Don't resist it. Just adjust accordingly. Mental interference, don't judge the information before the information's in front of you in full. Judge not. Emotional interference, fear not. Unpack your fear until it doesn't seem scary anymore, and then go back to the original answer and keep it pushing. Okay? Perfect. I'm going to take a second to look through the questions before I move forward into the next section of our material, which is the difference between an Akashic Records traveler and an Akashic Records practitioner. All right, let's see. How do you deal with startling images or phrases while in the records, like borderline frightening? Could I be channeling my own fears or something other than the records? Fear is a part of life. I've had my head cut off in the middle of Reiki healings like a million times. I would divorce yourself. Divorce yourself from your thoughts, because you aren't your thoughts. You aren't those images. You aren't those voices. You are the awareness that is listening to them. And because you're the awareness that's listening to them, you get to decide which images and which thoughts you make real and which ones you're like, okay, bitch, like that's a thought. You know, like there's no way that we can control every single thought. You know, it's just about, and we shouldn't have to. It's more about controlling the way you respond to those thoughts. But yeah, I would suggest really working to divorce yourself from those images and thoughts so that you're allowed to be empowered and disagree with them and be like, that's not me. You know, I have images in meditation all the time of me kicking a puppy or something, you know, something I would never really do. And I know that's not me. It's just a thought I'm having, and like it'd be like that sometimes, you know. Don't be afraid of your thoughts. Your thoughts aren't you. Your thoughts are just another physical experience you're having. Are inventors sometimes getting their original ideas from the records? Probably. I'm pretty fucking sure that Albert Einstein had something to do with the records, and really any strong physicist in the study of energy, I'm pretty fucking sure received divine guidance from somewhere. That's for sure. This happened with a specific question. I was deflated for a minute, but I listened and the full info was worth it. Period. Yes. We have entered the chat. You guys are so funny. I feel you on fearing the dark. It was a heavy presence. I had a nightlight until high school. Yeah, I had a nightlight until like a year ago. I have OCD with a lot of intrusive thoughts. It's definitely been helpful to recognize that you aren't your thoughts. Yes, you really aren't. You are not your body. You are not your emotions, and you are not your thoughts. A body is something that you have, and it allows you to have beautiful and agonizing experiences. Your emotions are a beautiful communication tool to help you navigate yourself and your own inner world and the way you interact with someone else's inner world. Your thoughts are a communication tool as well. And these are all experiences that you have, but they are not something that you are, you know? Something to think about. But yes, these are experiences that you're having. It doesn't mean you're not allowed to disagree with them. It doesn't mean you're not allowed to be like, shut the fuck up, intrusive thought, like I'm tired, I'm trying to vibe, I'm gonna watch The Little Mermaid and call it a fucking day. Because yeah, it's been the moon's in Gemini. Hi, hello. So I've been experiencing a ton of intrusive thoughts lately too, like you're not a good practitioner, you're teaching people wrong, and blah blah blah. And I'm just like, yeah, well, That doesn't resonate. I'm like, I hear you, I get it, but it doesn't resonate. So try harder. I don't know, but I don't know what to tell you, but it doesn't resonate. So I'm going to sit here and I'm going to watch El Zorro 2 and absolutely gag at my personal fantasy of Antonio Banderas rescuing me from my father on a horse into the sunset. And that's exactly what I did. You know what I mean? So it's okay to disagree with your emotions. It's okay to disagree with your sadness and say, I am not sad. I am experiencing a feeling of being sad. I feel sad. It doesn't mean I am sad. All right. Going off on a tangent, but bringing it back to the material. All right. Just because you are a personal Akashic traveler, it doesn't mean it's not within your jurisdiction to channel for someone else, especially if you have an intimate connection with them. Mega relevant if it's blood related connection, like this is your parent, this is your cousin, you know, like you share energetic lineage, mega favored. But also intimate connections, your best friend, they're going through it. It is not far-fetched for you to ask your keeper. Always ask your keeper. Don't let your ego, your need to be important and validated, give advice where it is inappropriate. Always ask your keeper, is there something I can do to support my best friend right now? Is there something you could say to them that maybe I could pass on that might be helpful? Is it appropriate for us to do that? Always, always ask. And that is very okay. Now, here is the delicate difference between a practitioner and an Akashic Records personal traveler. Let's say you are having the same argument with your mom. At least once a month, you guys have the same argument. It gets bad and it's never really resolved. She just doesn't get you, and you can't bring yourself to get her either. You can, within your jurisdiction, go into your Akashic Records and ask, what am I not seeing in my mother's side of the argument? Like, what is just going in one ear and out the other that I just cannot get? Your records are most likely going to be very happy to give you that kind of information if it leads to resolution. But here's the gag. When you receive information about someone else, you are expected to also deliver it. And you are expected to deliver it in a way that is kind, in a way that is gracious, and only in ways that lead to resolution. Okay? Because if you receive that information, but your mom doesn't recognize those patterns, doesn't have that information about herself, then you aren't on an equal playing field. Okay? And until you are held to a way higher, magnificently higher standard of accountability and responsibility for the way you talk to her. So the next time she's coming at you crazy, if you haven't gotten around to very gently and kindly guide her to see the things that she may not even be aware of, it's your ass on the line. If you lash out back, that's your bad. Okay? And you're going to have to go through it in a karmic fashion. The records aren't in the business of attacking or punishing people, but it's the universal law of cause and effect. What you cause in someone else becomes your effects, and those effects become your cause. Okay? So, when you receive that information, you are expected that the next time that argument comes up, you don't lash out back. Let your mom act crazy, and you can say, you know what, Mom? Have you maybe stopped to consider this may be a factor? The feeling that you're experiencing right now, does it remind you of any other feeling you've experienced with my big brother, with my little sister? I just want to listen to you. I'm tired of having this argument, and I really, really want us to respect each other and to see things clearly. So I'm going to do my part to ask some leading questions and hold space for you, and see where we can get to a place of calm and see what happens. Okay? You are not responsible for what your mom does or doesn't do in that argument, but you are responsible for the way you come forward, the space that you hold, the vibration you bring to that argument the next time, because you are a lot more educated on it than you were 10 minutes ago. Your vibration changes and you have to hold yourself to that standard. Now, a practitioner doesn't need to have an existing connection to literally anything or anyone other than a connection to themselves and the records. That's really the only difference. So if you ask about your mom, like, what are my mom's past lives that are affecting this argument? That has nothing to do with you. So the keeper isn't going to give you information that only pertains to your mom. You're going to need a practitioner for that. A practitioner is going to have to step in and ask your mom with her educated consent, can I open your records so I can look at your past lives, so I can see what patterns are playing out with your children? Not just the one, all of them, your whole family. Let's look at that. Okay? That's where a practitioner comes in. So most of you are gonna need one at some point, because it's not appropriate for you to have that kind of information even about a person that's connected to you. Even if you are personally affected by them and their behavior, there is just some information that is just, it doesn't pertain to you, so you cannot have it. So be very mindful of that, and always be mindful that your Akashic channelings, your level of access to the Akasha, is always dependent on your individual consciousness. It's always, the messages that you channel, even if they're for other people, always come from your records. Unless you are a practitioner and you have the skills and tools to open the Akashic records of another person without your own interfering, without your own being in it at all. Okay? That's the difference there. And with that difference comes the ability to open the records of plants, land, yourself, different names you've had in the past, the year 1902 on Earth, like whatever, you know what I mean? And being a practitioner requires that you sacrifice your personal biases and interests, okay? Because you're no longer channeling from your individual consciousness. You are doing the absolute most to open yourself to channel from a different consciousness. So the challenge for a practitioner is getting the fuck over yourself and understanding that you ain't shit but a translator, and being okay with that and finding purpose in that and being hype about it. But that's the difference. Okay, for some things you're gonna need a practitioner to go in there with a totally neutral, unbiased, no emotional investment of any kind in the answer to help you channel. As a personal traveler, though, it is very okay for you to honor that divine impulse to help, because this is a magnificent tool that can and will heal everyone you have a connection to just by helping you be more of yourself. So when your best friend is going through it, when a person you love is going through it, and you feel that divine impulse of wanting to help, ask your keeper, what is the best way for me to help this person? Is there anything that you could possibly say that I could deliver to this person that might help them see things a little differently, or just might validate their feelings a little better than I can? You know, that is always okay. And always ask, is it appropriate for us to do that? Because by doing so, you kind of take on a lot of responsibility. And we're all going to try and exercise right now, because all of this only exists as a concept until you experience it and make it real. So send me an emoji when you guys have your Akashic records fully open, because we're no dilly-dallying. This is the last class. We're going to do it right now. We're going to channel for someone other than ourselves. I don't receive that is a good one too. Yes, 100%. I'm going to adopt that. Thank you for sharing that. Looking for something to write it down. It's okay. It's short. I'll remember it. I don't receive that. Yes. For a long time, I had a struggle of internalizing people's projections and then being mad at me because I didn't enable their codependent habits. They were like, well, you're my teacher. And I was like, I'm your facilitator to teach you to do what I do. That's it. So that's a good one where I'm going to be like, I don't receive that. I don't think I'm being mean to you. I think I'm seeing you as you really are. And you want me to see you as a victim that needs my help. But you're not, though. You're not. The only thing you lack is confidence. Like, and I can't just like give you that, you know? But that's a really good one. I'm going to start using that in my practice. Yay. Okay. For uniform purposes, you're all going to channel for me because I do exist in your Akashic records now. So let me think of a question that's like easy across the board for everyone too. Here's a good one. What message does your keeper have for me about my upcoming trip? That's a good one. What message does your Akashic Records keeper have for me about my upcoming trip? Nothing fancy. I just want you guys to notice the difference between channeling for yourself and channeling for another person. So, go. While I take my vitamins, mind your business. I received the first message, but I'm not reading it out loud because I don't want to corrupt anyone else's experience. But whenever you guys receive a message, send it on down. Okay, I'm gonna go ahead and call it just for time purposes. So go ahead and send over to me whatever it is that you channel. And then I'll give you guys some feedback. I'll give you guys some feedback and then ask for some follow-up questions. That's what I'm gonna do. Just for you, not your keeper, just you guys. Thank you all for channeling for me. It's exciting. My upcoming trip is literally like hours away. So I was like, oh, that might be a good one. Yikes. Let's see. Denise, bring extra water and pay attention to the stars, especially Sirius. There is a light code in store for you from your home planet. I have nothing for you to channel for her. Pack light, enjoy the scenery, pack light. Well, damn, the consistency. Pack sunscreen and a hat, have fun. Don't let your worries about family take away your joy. Hope I'm not overstepping by mentioning family. It's a very real thing. I'm perpetually worried about my family. I saw a cat curled up tightly and someone smoking. Not sure what that means. Girl, me neither, but I'll let you know. Not them telling me to pack light. No. I have literally like a checked bag. I have a carry-on. I have my backpack. I have my purse. Like, leave me alone. A prime example of being empowered and not doing what they tell you to do. I'm probably going to pay a fortune in bags. Might even have to mail one of them home to myself, but always, always remember that you have the option to say no and do whatever you want anyway. Pack sunscreen, got that, and a hat. I don't have that. I'll have to find one, but that's a good one. Don't let worries about family take away your joy. Yes. Be mindful of getting blisters. Yeah, girl, the way I'm about to walk everywhere. Did I bring walking shoes? No. But now that you said it, I will bring some. I'll bring my Nikes and some socks. Okay. Here's how I can tell that you guys are tapping into messages specifically for me. They're short. Some keepers are very poetic and it's lovely and, you know, all of the validation, all of the compassion. My records tend to be real straightforward, especially when they come from other people. They're very like, do this, period. No explanation, no context, because they know that's what I need. I'm like, receive, and then I go. Or I'm like, received, and no. Either way, that's how I can tell. You guys are very straightforward. This is what it is, period. One of you was even like, I ain't gotta tell her anything. She's good. That's true. I feel pretty good today. I didn't need a whole lot of guidance and I'm not super worried about the trip. And then the thing with family, yes, oh my God, like my shadow wounds have been coming up majorly. So yeah, all of these resonated in a different way, not just because of what was said, but because of the way it was said. I was like, they know me. Perfect. Now, my follow-up questions for you guys. What was the difference? Receiving a message for yourself versus receiving a message for a person that exists outside of you. Did you notice any differences? I felt like I traveled to a different frequency room than my own before Cody started talking. A bit detached, like casual energy. It was even harder, and yeah, I felt different. Like you said, no cookie cutter. It took a minute to receive. My heart quickened. Yeah, it's different, right? I worried a bit less about my own biases interfering with the records. Yes. Sometimes you really got to channel for another person that you love for you to realize that you're not fucking around, that you're not just making shit up because it's so objective, and it's like that energy that they have with you is like la la la. It's a kiki. You guys are having a good time. You guys are voguing in the back, you're raving, like you're having a good time, you're learning, you're growing. And then it's like all of a sudden when you're channeling for someone that you're not in control of, it's like all that energy just suddenly gets concentrated on one thing. That's really what you're aiming for eventually, with your own channelings. For those of you that are still struggling with questioning, oh, am I just making things up that I want to hear, or is this real? Do you ever make things up that you want to hear? Like, take a step back and just like consider this for a second. Do you ever speak of yourself in your own head as highly as the records do? Most of the time, that answer is no. Do you ever um do you ever talk to yourself like you are a capable, empowered, responsible adult? Rarely. Do you ever speak to yourself in a way that's not judgmental and shameful? Rarely. So when you worry about, oh, I'm just making things up that I want to hear, you don't actually do that ever. Even when you have the choice to, you don't tell yourself things that you want to hear. You don't say, of course, Denise, it's okay to feel this way. I totally understand and I'm here for you. You never do that. So that is the difference. The Akashic records versus you. You think that you're telling yourself what you want to hear when really they're just hitting you with facts. And when you actually have the option to tell yourself what you want to hear, you don't. You spend that whole time telling yourself why you shouldn't want to hear those things or why you don't deserve to hear those things. So that is a very good mechanical way of stepping out of that doubt and being like, well, shit. Even when I don't have the records open, I don't tell myself that I'm great, that I have so much to offer the world, that this, and this. Like, even when in your daily life you're making shit up about yourself, it's never something great. It's never something good. It's never something, you know, genuinely empowering or uplifting or at the very least validating and supportive. You know what I mean? So most of the time, no, we're not just making shit up to tell ourselves what we want to hear, because most of the time we're not very comfortable with hearing about who we really are and seeing ourselves as we really are. Okay. So I hope that that pro tip helps. Another pro tip I have, if you ever super, super mega seriously doubt the voice of your keeper, ask them to change their voice. I love Inuyasha. And one time they started talking to me in a character from that anime's voice. His name is Sashomaru. And it's like this stoic anti-hero almost. And they started channeling in Sashomaru's voice. And I was like, why are you doing that? And they were like, he's just so dashing. You know what I mean? And I was like, I mean, you're not wrong, but like calm yourself. This has happened and I freaked out. Yes, for beginners, it really, really helps. It really, really helps to have them speak like Darth Vader. One time I had them speak like Mickey Mouse and it was horrifying. I never want them to do it again, but they did do it. So it's very okay to ask them. Okay, that's it. That's all you got to do is just ask them, like, hey, I'm having trouble hearing you, and I'm having a little trouble with my faith today. Can you help me out? Can you throw me a bone? Can you throw me a floaty? Yes, they can and they will. Okay. So always, always, always ask for support in the way that you want it. So Shomaru Zadaddy respectfully. Yes, 100%. I don't think anyone that has ever seen Inuyasha hasn't had the hots for Sesshomaru at all. And you know what? Yes. Mufasa from Lion King, I would absolutely gag listening to them in the voice of Mufasa from Lion King, where it's like, remember who you are. I'd be like, yes, it's my favorite Disney movie. What if they still don't speak? Make them. Ask them to. They're never going to not speak to you, but they will withhold if they feel that what's best for you right now is silence. But even if that's true, you are always empowered to say, hello, I am here. And at least have them acknowledge you so that you're not sitting there full of doubt. If silence is what benefits your soul the most, ask them to tell you that. Ask them, you know, why is it difficult for me to hear you? Or why am I just seeing images and not channeling in this way? They'll give you answers to that. And be empowered to ask for them. Okay? Be empowered to ask for them. The records are not going to punish you. They're not going to lose their patience with you. They're not going to get tired of repeating themselves. It's okay. Everything's going to be all right. I'm going to leave you guys on that note. Thank you so much for taking the initiative to join this program. I am a self-employed person. This is what I do for a living. It brings me so much emotional fulfillment and joy to be able to pass on these tools and skills that have helped create a new person inside of me and have helped me create a new life from that empowered place. I'm still working on a lot of things, but it's a good time. Are you offering classes for future practitioners? I do train practitioners, but only once a year. So every February 22nd, I teach a group of practitioners. But I trained myself to be a practitioner and I channeled that whole program. So if you know for a fact that the practitioner, because being a practitioner has nothing to do with having a practice and everything to do with a lifestyle. So the way to know whether you are a practitioner or not is really to just ask, because if you are, there's nothing you can do to get away from it. Whether you offer this service to others or you don't, you are a practitioner, so you will live as one and be held to that standard. It is a lifestyle. It has nothing to do with a practice. I've trained practitioners that are musicians, actors, painters. I've trained practitioners that are channelers, but not in the way I do it. I've trained practitioners that do body work, breath work. Did I already say musicians? Yeah. Writers, astrologers, doulas. Oh man, I trained an Akashic practitioner that does doula work. Oh, fire. So yeah, being a practitioner is less about your practice and more about your lifestyle. So being a practitioner is really, you are one or you're not one at all. And one of them isn't better than the other one. It's just that if you are, then that's what you came here to do and it serves your purpose. And if you didn't choose the practitioner lifestyle, then you don't need anything for your purposes beyond this point, and that's okay. Okay, I am going to leave it on that note. Please, 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 if you feel called and it's not too much to ask, I would love it if you guys hyped up this program to your friends on Twitter, send me some feedback so I can post it on my website. Because word of mouth is literally what brings people to this program. So again, I am so inspired by all of you. I am so excited to see what kind of life you create for yourselves from this place. And I very truly do appreciate you guys and your support all the time. Even though this program is over, if you resonate with me as a teacher, there's so many opportunities for further learning. even if it's just like individual, like I just want to like message you every now and then, that's very okay. I'm not going to like be upset at you or anything. Um, yes. So thank you so much. I hope that we all get to stay connected. Again, I am going to stay active in the group chat for one more week in case any questions come up, and you want some further insight. If I can offer it to you, I absolutely will. But yes, thank you so much. I'm going to read some comments. Thank you for showing up for all of us and all the nuggets over this month. This is absolutely invaluable. Denise, thank you so, so much. I appreciate this a lot. You've been so informative and gracious. We next, you sure are. All right, thank you so much. Going to leave it on that note. When I return home, because it takes a while for these long live streams to upload to YouTube, when I come home, I will be sending a YouTube playlist of every class via email and also in the group chat for your convenience. You can come back and watch this whenever it's necessary for you to. But yes, again, thank you so much for the love and for the feedback. I'll send you guys pictures of my trip, and hopefully I find the Sirius star. All right, take care, everyone. Bye.